Welcome back to Piece of Work, the podcast. This is Danielle Tantone, and I'm joined today by my friend Dawn Brooks. Dawn, we have known each other for quite a while, 13 years, 10, I don't know exactly how many years. She was a friend from my running group, which I talked about a little bit in my memoir, but she is a powerhouse all on her own. I'll let her introduce herself a little bit, and then we're just going to get to talking. We had some technological delays, so we don't want to waste any more time. Thanks for coming, Dawn.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about who you are and how we know each other and what you want to talk about.
So, my name's Dawn. Like you introduced me. We met. I want to say it was like right around 2009, 2010 that we connected, and that was from the running group. You were in the JV squad, which is where I was at that time too. Yep. Running around and hanging out with that group in Lucinda's. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts, but I moved to Chicago when I was around 19 years old and got married there. Actually married and divorced, and then remarried to my husband, Randy Brooks, who was diagnosed with ALS. And if you don't know what that disease is, it is a terminal disease. It takes basically all of your voluntary muscles start to atrophy and you're no longer able to use them. It's a progressive disease, and it's different for everyone. But ultimately it is something that is terminal. So when we found that out, he was originally from California, Arizona area, and he had family that lived out here, that we thought it was important that he get to as much family as he could for his final years. So that's what brought me out to Arizona and got me into Lucinda's, and which is how I ended up meeting you in the group. And
I was going to say that ALS, when you say those words, I remember, was it like in 2017 or 2018 when they did the ALS bucket challenge?
Yeah, I think it was even earlier than that, but yeah, okay. It was. I think it was like 2016-ish.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking. I always remember things in terms of how old my kids were at the age, or how old I was, depending on how long ago we're talking. And I thought my little one Aria was already around. So anyway, I remember standing in the pool and jumping at some. And I think of you when I think of that. So when you said ALS, that's what I think of. But
I mean, the disease itself, it's horrific. I mean, I don't think I could pick like a worse way to like go. I mean, thankfully my husband, when he passed, he was able to pass peacefully in his sleep. And he was able to speak a little, in the end, but really I was the only one that could understand him. So I became his translator. And thankfully he was still able to breathe on his own, and he could swallow some foods. So, but that's not the case for everyone. Yeah. And ultimately, like if it goes all the way to the end, you're literally just trapped in your body. Your mind is 100% and your body literally just fails you. It's awful.
So you drown and you suffocate and you starve to death.
It's awful.
Yeah. That sounds horrible. It's
pretty much as bad as it gets. Yeah.
So tell us that I think really defined you during those years. It changed your whole trajectory in life, I believe, just based on little bits and pieces I've caught.
I wouldn't just call it ALS that changed my trajectory, but Randy himself. I grew up, came from a broken, home, like same story, everybody kind of like lots of anger issues and neglect and abuse at home, and really had to fight my way and figure out a lot of things on my own, where I didn't have a lot of the guidance or support to kind of do anything. So I spent a lot of time making a lot of mistakes in my youth and early 20s, and including my first marriage. And I never really had anybody that kind of like made me feel like supported and like somebody that like believed in me, and I just wanted to help me like get to like a different place until really I met Randy. He was the first person that he was so many things to me. It's so hard to describe because he was 28 years my senior.
I was just going to say he was quite a bit older than you, right?
A lot older than me, yes. Which, yeah, you can call that what you want, daddy issues, all the things. But yeah, I had all the things. I really did. I was, my dad had, left my mom when I was 7, and I just didn't have a lot of, a lot of good influences. So Randy being older, even though, at the time it was, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, she's so old, but he wasn't unattractive or anything. I wasn't like super attracted either. It was just like him as a person. He was such this charismatic presence. Anybody that knows him knows exactly what I'm talking about. He was the cruise director, the king of the ship, the person that just like anybody would gravitate to. And so he made quite an impression on me. I worked at a casino. I met him at a casino. He would come on and I just enjoyed him as a person. And I actually originally set him up with my best friend, who was older than me, a little bit more age appropriate for him. And she was like, yeah, he's a great guy, but I think he's into you, And so anyways, he turned out to be kind of everything for me. He was a father, he was a mentor, he was a best friend, he was my husband, he was my love, like everything.
That's beautiful.
All of the things that I needed in my life at that time, he was for me. And with that kind of support and that level, he helped me. I mean, I finished college, I continued, my education, I believed in myself, started to like realize that like, wow, you could do whatever you want to do. Like the sky's the limit. You have the potential, you're smart, you're, all of these things that I never really had before that. So yeah, it was more than just ALS. That was another layer that he and I had to build a relationship with that, like me being his caregiver, because that's the other thing people don't understand with.
Yeah, caregiving is a whole nother thing.
It's a different relationship. I mean, it really is. And like with Randy, I experienced this relationship on like so many levels. I mean, in the beginning, it was companionship and like just being able to laugh and enjoying his company, and then falling in love with him, and then, a romantic relationship, and then being married. And then, when he got diagnosed and he started, to progress, and I started becoming more caregiver, there's a shift in the relationship at that point, because it's obviously it's no longer the wine and dine and lover kind of thing. It's now like I'm literally helping the man go to the bathroom and eat his food and feeding him,
Yeah.
Which just took it to a different level. And we had to develop a whole nother relationship with that in mind. And then just seeing someone I literally can't express knowing somebody that is literally all like with all of the charisma that you would possibly want in a person, and just seeing like all of this being like taken away from them and like stripped and stuff like that. Oh, it was
heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking. It was devastating. Obviously I had an option. I could have left. I didn't have to stay in but that was never an option for me. I wasn't ever going to do that. And I decided very early on, I'm sticking this out. I'm helping this man. There is no way I'm leaving him hanging with this kind of.
That was one of my questions is, did you ever doubt, did you ever decide, wonder if you could really do with this?
He gave me the option. I mean, he gave me multiple options. He gave me options to like have, outside marriage affairs, to leave, to like, he did not want to be a burden on me at all. But no, there's no way. I mean, he was just, I was going to do it. I was going to stay there and I was going to see him through. And it was an experience. It's something I don't ever want to do again.
No, I can't imagine. Don, how long was that experience
7 years.
between his diagnosis and his death was 7 years?
His diagnosis and his death was 5 years. He and I were together 7.
We were together for 7. So that's interesting. Yeah. The majority of your relationship was after ALS, not before. Wow.
Yeah.
So after Randy died, you did a lot of different things. Actually, you did my hair for my wedding. My most recent wedding.
I still love your hair in those pictures. I'm like, oh, her hair looks
beautiful.
So good.
It really, you did such a good job because it wasn't that long, but you made it look like this updo. I wish I could flash a picture. I wish I was that technologically sound savvy and also had thought of it ahead of time.
Yes.
But I was just looking at that picture the other day because I posted it for something.
Yeah.
There's one from the back and you can see my dress and my hair, and did a beautiful job. But yeah, you did my hair, I think, a number of times in the salon too. You cut it and stuff. So you were a hairdresser. You owned an auto shop at one time. You are Jill of all trades.
I am. Yeah. I feel like we relate in a lot of ways in that. Always like looking for me, because again, I think it stems from my childhood of not just having like support and direction. I've learned a lot of things as an adult that I think a lot of people learn, as a child. And man, like having a goal and setting something out there and like going out and seeing what you're good at is just, it's something that I didn't really start to explore until later in life. And so one of the things that I had always wanted to do was be a hairdresser. That's something like real early on. Like my favorite toy growing up was like a Barbie head, like one of those big heads that I would, and then I in 7th grade, I remember like doing all the updos for the dances. I was doing my friends' perms, and like, I just loved it. I just was, my mom was terrible. She didn't really have good hygiene and like didn't really know how to like do makeup and hair. And so I was kind of left at my own device, and I wanted to,
so you went the opposite direction in your life.
Yeah. I wanted to look like all the cool kids, so I had to figure it out myself, like how to like do that kind of stuff.
And how did you do that? Because there wasn't YouTube back then. You couldn't just watch a video on how to do it. How did you figure it out?
Just observation, seeing what people were doing. That's a good question. I never really thought about it, but yeah, just reading directions, and I just kind of practicing. My poor brother had some really bad haircuts.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you eventually did get your cosmetology license, and you worked professionally as a hairstylist for many years. How many years did you do that for?
Well, when I was working I actually got my license when I was working at the casino. So I started at the casino when I was like 20, I think. And I started as a cage cashier, and I worked my way up to dealer, and I became a dealer. And I did that for like almost 11 years. And in that time though, I had some big milestone markers that I was able to do for myself. One of them being getting my GED. I didn't even have that. So that was a huge obstacle for me. That actually spurred from my first marriage, because he, I think, liked feeling superior to me and like would hold it over my head that I didn't have a high school diploma, like I was stupid or something. And in order to prove him wrong, I went and got my GED. So I'm like, see, I can do these things. So it was kind of like in spite of him. But thankfully that opened the door for, the rest of my education. And then the first thing I wanted to try to do was become a hairdresser, because that was my original first thought that I wanted to do. But like you, like a realtor, being a hairdresser requires a lot of like time and a lot of unpaid time. Just sitting there waiting for clients, building clientele, doing
marketing,
I mean, I know you can relate to that. Mm-hmm. So I still had to work full-time at the casino, and then I was able to do part-time hair to try to build up my business in Chicago. And so I did that for about, I want to say it was like 2004 till 2000. So probably since about 2004 is how long I've had my hairdressing license. I was in Chicago working in a salon up until Randy and I left. And then when I came to Arizona, I debated, do I want to try to start all over again? Do I want to waste all this time like building up clientele? Plus, I also had Randy to take care of. So I didn't want to commit a bunch of like hours to nothing and feeling like, I have somebody that needs me at home to like take care of him. So it's been part-time for most of the time that I've had it. But then when Randy passed, I was finally able to, our mutual friend of ours, Bev, was like, come work at the salon with me. Like, we need people. And so I did that for a little while with her.
Okay. That's about, I remember that time period. That's about the time period that when I got married and when you did my hair. That's very cool. And then, what did you say? Oh, we talked about education. You brought up education. So since you got your cosmetology license, you've gone back to school other
Yeah.
times, at least one other time that I know of, including recently. Tell us a little bit about that and why and what you chose to study.
So it's funny because the hair, after experiencing ALS with Randy and like watching that whole play out, it gave me a different perspective in life. Like I have a unique perspective that unless you've watched somebody die, you don't have. And that is basically like what's the greater purpose? What's the, what am I here for? What do I have to offer the world? And I got to this point at the salon where I was kind of, going back and forth with, is this really what I want to offer the world? Is this all I have? And, through caregiving and coping and trying to deal with like the heartache of what was all going on with Randy, I really fell in love with fitness. I ended up just using it as a tremendous stress release and a way to like cope and help take care of myself. And actually, Danielle, the funny thing is with this story, it reminds me of you as well, because if I was ever going to write a book about anything, it would literally be how I use fitness to help me be a caregiver, and how that I think that anybody that is a caregiver, including mothers and any kind of person that's caring for other human beings, how self-care becomes such a crucial thing for you to be able to be your best self with the person that you're caring for. So true. And I truly feel like I was able to be the best caregiver that I could possibly be because I took care of myself physically and, and also as a byproduct of that, mentally.
Absolutely. Yes. And I have been a recipient of your coaching and expertise in the fitness arena as well, for a little while when you were doing some fitness coaching. I know you've done different iterations of that over the years, but for a little while you had a fitness program and you did some personal coaching, and you're so wise when it comes to fitness and eating and diet and just putting it all together.
I really like got into it. It wasn't like I was just dabbling in fitness. Like I really put my because I really felt that is what I could help offer the world in terms of making a difference in people's lives. And so I really wanted to learn like everything I possibly could about it and go really far with it, so that I was putting out good information. Because fitness in general, if you look at what's out there in terms of like advice,
so much.
Oh my gosh, how anybody like figures out anything is beyond me, because there's so much mixed messages and bad advice and fads and gimmicks and sales and like all of that tarnish in the industry that it makes it almost impossible for people to like get something together and get something going. And it also makes them feel as if their goal or their want is impossible, because they don't know how to like wrangle it together to make it a actual thing for themselves. So that's really like what I really wanted to help people do, is like wrangle the mess and like quiet the noise of like market media and like social media and like people's bad advice, and like do this and get your results,
hone in and go after a goal, a specific goal.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that you do so beautifully, regardless of whether we're talking about getting your GED or, starting a business or getting in the best shape physically or creating a specific, challenge physically. You are really amazing at, choosing a goal and then going after it and having clear-cut steps. How do you have a process for that, or how do you look at all these different goals the same way, or have you developed some tips that you could offer?
That's a good question, Danielle. I wouldn't say there's one specific way for any, there's 100 different ways to get to the same answer, but I guess I could tell you like how I progressed it, because it really started for me as obviously doing it for myself rather than helping other people, but like doing it for myself was about proving to myself over and over and over again that I could accomplish all of these like impossible things, right? Like first being GED,
Mm-hmm.
then being going out and doing, getting, my training certifications, continuing my education, and then races. And then it really started with races. Like my first race was a half marathon. Like I didn't start with a 5K. I just like went to a half marathon, right? And I'm going to do this. And so, cause I didn't believe that I could. And so I'm like, I have to see if I can. And it kind of like, that's what like went off in my mind at some point. Like Bev Krupe, actually, she was the big driving force in like getting me into racing at all. She's
an inspiration for a lot of people, I think.
She really is. I am like one person, like I am truly blessed that I met her. She's right up there with Randy in terms of like inspirational, influential people. But yeah, she came up to me after class. I was going to her group fitness class and she's like, oh, we have this, half marathon coming up. You should do it. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I could barely run 3 miles on the treadmill, let alone like outside. And she was like, yes, you can. And I'm like, well, really? Nobody ever told me that I could. So I'm like, maybe I should believe her.
That's awesome.
I was like,
I love
so
that.
simple and so stupid when I look back now. But that's what happened. She told me that I could do something that I didn't think I could. And because she believed in me, I was like, well, maybe I should believe in me and like try. And
it's amazing. The power of someone believing in you is just incredible. And just really even just believing something's possible in general. Like I always think about the 4-minute mile or any other goal that like at one time it was impossible and now people do it all the time. Like it's like,
right. Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, no, it's true. But it has to come from, there has to be a driving force, right? You have to have a why and a want. And if we're looking at a recipe for achieving your goals, like those are the things, right? It's like, okay, you have to have like why you're doing it. You have to have a drive, like what are you going to gain from doing it? Like what are you going to ultimately get from it? And all of those things have to be enough for you to pull yourself forward to continue to make steps and not give up, right? Absolutely. But then inside you, there has to be something that believes in yourself enough to keep moving forward. So those are the things that are the hardest things for people to do is, have all of that. And thankfully, because of the support and because of the people I've known in my life and because of myself, I guess, that I've just been able to like harness that kind of that drive to keep pushing myself forward, to keep, and I use that an example as like keep proving to myself over and over and over again what I can do. And it, the longer I've done that and the more I've done that, it's given me the confidence and the self-confidence to believe in myself more and more and more. And it becomes like a snowball, right? Like you get one little goal. Oh, I did that. What else can I do? You get this little one. Oh my gosh, I actually did that. So what else can I do? And it like starts to like, in fitness for me, it went all the way up to like Ironmans and bodybuilding competitions, which you asked me that like, in my previous life, no, are you kidding me? That's not me. That's not anything that I'm capable of. But now you ask me now, yeah, I can pretty much do anything that I set my mind to. I believe that,
That's amazing. That in and of itself is such a good life lesson that you've taught yourself or you've been taught. I'm so bad. I had an idea in my head that I wanted to remember to come back to, and I didn't want to interrupt you, and now I forgot it, even though I'm taking notes.
Oh, that's okay.
I guess what my question that was kind of simmering in my brain was, what would you say to somebody who's like, well, I just don't really know. I don't really have any passions. I don't really know what I want to do in my life. I just kind of, I think I want to do something different. I don't like my job, but I don't really have any great wants.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody
what you mean.
like that?
And that, that's 99% of the population. Like, I don't know.
It's not me and you. But it is a lot of people.
I think I would break that down into questions and steps, because I think the worst thing that we do, and I think the worst thing we do to kids, though I'm not a parent, but one of the things, if I was going to give advice to parents, sometimes that I see is we have these like, why are we forcing them to like decide to make these decisions? Like, why do you have to know that? Like,
so true.
Why? You don't have to know what you want to be for the rest of your life. You don't have to know what your purpose in life is. You don't have to know all of these things, right? So
nobody does really
in itself, huh?
And nobody does really know that.
No, I mean, you don't.
It can change. Yeah.
Your life is nothing but a series of experiences that you have to go off of, right? And one experience may be significantly more than another experience, but it could pivot your whole life into a different direction, right? Like, you don't know. So why make yourself like pinned down to that? But that's not to be saying just flounder through life and never accomplish anything, right? You have to, so I would say to what excites you? What makes you want to like get out of bed in the morning? What do you look forward to? Start there, because that's easy stuff, right? Like, those are the easy things. Like, oh, I love, doing this. Or I loved the release I would feel from exercising. I loved like putting myself through a training and seeing how I could reshape my body. Like, that was exciting to me, like, because it was just different, right? So it got me into fitness. It got me into kind of that direction. And I just kept wanting to know more and more and more and more and more, right? And so I just let that ball continue. So I would say that to start there with somebody that like really has no idea. And you know what? I'll tell you an interesting fact that I realized, because what I went to school for, my degree was in, is to become a certified health and wellness coach. And we give our clients a questionnaire, like a very long, thorough questionnaire. And with these questions, like, what makes you live? What makes you alive? What makes you, and the responses that I got from some of those questionnaires, I mean, people will break down and cry because they don't even know that. Like, they don't even know that answer. Like, what do I even like, or what do I want? Because they've like lost themselves somewhere along the way. Mm-hmm. And it's a really hard question for some people to answer. Just basic things about like what you love in life and what you enjoy. And so I think based on the individual and based on how far, some people it's simple, oh, this, okay, here you go. We'll get your ball rolling. And it's a simple, quick fix, right? But for other people, it's not as simple. It's oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what I like. And it's like, all right, well, let's start there. Let's try some things. Did you used to have a hobby? Did you used to have, something? And start as simple as that. Like, did you used to like maybe doodling in a notebook? Maybe you could just start with a week of that and see like if your mind unwinds, I mean, it's not an easy question.
No, I think we're so like almost conditioned to just go through life and do what needs to be done. And we have so many tasks. And then at the end of the day, if we work at a job, we come home and we just want to, unwind and close our minds and just, watch TV and veg out. We're not used to being creative and even thinking about those things as a society. I think, obviously you and I are, but yeah, I think that's so important.
We're used to, doing chores, tasks.
Is this productive?
Right.
Or
that's how we're conditioned.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So you, we don't have too much time. We got kind of a late start, but we had, like I said, been connected over the years, but haven't ever really been close friends. But you reached out to me after reading my book and just like, you were actually one of the first people who read it, because I think you read it when it was in pre-order. And you just had such you were like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you wrote this book. It is so good and so inspiring. And can you tell me a little bit about what connected it for you? Like what you thought, why you thought that?
Well, first of all, you and I, like, I've always considered you a friend, but we were never close. Like, we didn't really like do a lot together or anything. But
we saw each other from afar almost.
And so first of all, the fact that I even know somebody that wrote a book was like, oh my gosh, like amazing. And I am like 100% supportive of like anybody doing something like I think is a huge feat, like people just don't know people who write books. So I just thought I'm going to support this and I'm going to read her book.
So thankful for you.
And so I felt like, just in order to be a supportive friend, I felt like a duty to do this. And I was interested, I mean, it covers a lot of different things, and it gave me an opportunity to get to know you better that, we had never really gotten a chance to before. So yeah, I read it, and I was honestly, I mean, it really, because I think I did in the back of, though, I would have said, well, I have no problem with Danielle. Like, I don't, have any like opinions or judgments of her, but after reading your book, I realized I probably did, that like not on a conscious level, but like subconsciously, I think I did. I had judgments of you and opinions, but it's a good example of like when, society and how we do that. We judge people.
There's more to the story than is on the surface.
Yes.
I think in the running group, I remember we were training for a marathon when I was going through my divorce. And I remember just kind of nonchalantly announcing, we're getting a divorce. My husband and I are getting a divorce. And I remember feeling like people were judging me for that. And I remember feeling like I wanted them to realize I wasn't as nonchalant as I sounded. And there was more to it, and it was more complicated. But that was my way of being, is just to like make light of it. And I think there's so many things in there that when people who know me read it, they're like, oh, wow, like there is a little more depth than I thought there. And
absolutely. It was a really, like, to me, I think the biggest lesson I took away from your book was that alone, like judging somebody based on like really no information and not knowing them. And then also understanding, like I think also the health coach in me also understands those kinds of like, because you still do it. You still do nonchalant like things to like really serious stuff, right? But I get it as
breast cancer.
Like, you minimalizing your stage 0 breast cancer. It's like, okay, yes, I understand it's only stage 0, but like you still had to make this choice, and you felt like you had ticking time bombs on your chest. Like, that's not a nonchalant thing, right? That's not something that is like easy for somebody to deal with or like have to live with every day. And getting I can't imagine what it would be like to get a phone call like that. I don't care how little the cancer is, the cancer's there, and being concerned that it's just going to be this haunting plague for the rest of your life. And I told you that already, that I felt like you like really shaded over that a lot, because I think that was a huge thing, that you shouldn't be, just because somebody else has stage 5 breast cancer does not make you less important, or that your experience isn't as valid. Like it's still what you have to live through and go through, right? It's still very important. But knowing you as a person, and yes, like I understand that about you, that you and it's funny because I think you almost sometimes get the opposite effect. Like you try desperately to like, almost like harness the narrative of what's happening around you, but it ends up like kind of an opposite effect, right? Instead of just letting people make their own opinion and their own judgment, like, and I do it too. I'm guilty of it too. Trying to like, okay, this is how I want you to feel about this.
Right.
Or this is how I want you to view me feeling about this. It's very normal and common, but.
And it's part of like, I had a conversation with a friend it was about something else, but she was sort of, judging, for lack of a better word, an influencer who had made a big announcement about something very personal. And she was like, it just like, it's sort of just kind of slimy to just make this announcement. And I was like, okay, but there are some of us in this world who kind of almost process things out loud. Like I am a natural extrovert. And I process things by talking about it and by sharing it. And so it's hard when you're like that, and especially when you're also a writer, which requires a lot of introspection and stuff. So it's hard when you're somebody who really does have deep thoughts, and yet you kind of talk before you think a lot, and you process things out loud, I guess. So that was.
But in your book, I thought, aside from the breast cancer, I think you did an excellent job of laying out your perspective, because that's the other thing that really, like, man, I really felt like I understood what was going on in your mind. And it really, like, for me, it explained a lot of things, and it made it like I'm like, man, I can't believe she was going through that. I wish I could be there that day at the coffee shop and give you a hug when you felt so alone and so shunned by your family. And, even though I know what you take responsibility for your actions. You're not.
And I was sitting there that day with the whole group around me, and nobody knew. Even the friend who was running next to me, she kind of knew. She felt it. She had to have felt it, but like nobody had any idea. I still had a smile on my face. I was drinking my coffee, and I was just sitting there, like, just dead inside. Just so hurt.
And I mean, I think that if anybody in our group would have known that, had have felt what you were feeling at that time, and taking that judgment away, and just you know what I mean? And regardless of yes, we're all a product of our actions and consequences. And we unfortunately it's not always going to be easy, but you don't need us adding to that, judging you. I mean, we're friends. You're not doing it to us. You know what I mean? This is your life, and that's what you need support for. So
yeah,
I just feel like it really, I think the huge takeaway for me from your book was, you got to live a day in the life of somebody's shoes, and don't just assume. And people have, I think, inherent instinctual defense mechanisms that go up that can get viewed one way, but really it's there's so much more underneath it that you shouldn't
so
judge.
True.
You really shouldn't.
Like someone laughing when they feel uncomfortable or when they're sad.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we got to wrap it up. Someone else has to use the studio, but yes, we are all a piece of work, a work in progress, and a work of art. And thank you for the influence and inspiration you've been in my life, Dawn. And thanks for being here with me today. And look forward to hiking or something with you soon.
We'll get
maybe
soon,
cocktails.
Sure.
Who knows?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
See you later.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thanks.